Hello and welcome to the show. For this week's FailRace versus the community, we were going racing with C-Class heavyweights. These cars all weighing over 4,000 pounds. Some of them, like my Firebird for example, might have started out a little bit lighter, but with engine swapped with roll cages and so on and so forth, yeah, some could be made up to the required weight. For example, I was running the 7-litre Hemi in the Firebird. Our first race would go to the Road Atlanta Club circuit. I find myself relatively far, not at the back for a change, but relatively far down the order. Had plenty busy opening lap while a Jeep in the background would get it all wrong into and ping out of a tyre bundle. I'd made my way up a number of positions, although came up against a Jaguar. Now, I had a lot of speed, or a decent amount of speed. It wasn't the fastest, very fast, but I was pretty good down these straights. I was catching up to a Volvo who then wanted to go to the inside of a Daytona. We were 3 wide with me having a wheel on the grass, in the braking zone there. Somehow managed to pull my vehicle up in time, but all of my hard work in getting past the Jag didn't quite all pan out. At the front, a different Volvo was leading the way. However, while it was very quick around the corners, it did struggle a little bit with its straight line speed, making it a tad bit of a sitting duck. It could kind of get away through the final corner, just about to be far enough away from the Charger by the time they got towards turn 1. However, if you make a little mistake at all, it took the Volvo was just running a bit too deep through the first corner. It's a little bit slow on the exit, and, well, the Charger will take the lead away. Rear-wheel drive Odyssey would also snap at the opportunity to jump up into a second place. That's a fairly minor mistake, but at the early stage of the race where you've got a field of cars waiting to find a way past, those little mistakes can be quite costly. I was still in the thick of the action, back behind the Jaguar, busy fighting with a giant Volvo SUV, and we were going to go for the second lap in a row, 2 wide through the chicane. 3 wide, through the chicane. This time, it will work out a little bit better. The Volvo's around the outside of all of us through the first part. I tried to hold it around the outside of the second part. Both me and the Volvo were sliding our way through that corner. I ended up with a wheel on the grass, just kept my foot down and got going again. The Jag tried to get to the inside of the final corner, couldn't quite make it stick. I was clear this time, off chasing after now the giant Volvo to try and find a way back past it. He went very defensive into the first corner, made him sort of a bit slow on the exit. I was kind of initially intending on doing a cutback to get back past it. I had such a good run on the outside, I just left the Firebird there. I did have enough speed. It's not the easiest place to go around the outside there at the top of the hill. I had enough speed though, kind of the acceleration zone. I was far enough alongside, far enough almost ahead for the Volvo to not have too much choice in the matter. There was a Jeep Trailcat in this first race, which as you can imagine had a fairly decent spot on the grid, and being all-wheel drive, considering a lot of these vehicles weren't, got off the line very, very quickly, but it was quite the handful, quite a difficult thing to get around some of these fast corners. It's very, very sideways through the final turn. Not a place you want to be having risky manoeuvres go on. One small misstep, you end up in that tyre bundle. And, well, in this case, just that oversteer moments cost the Jeep a place. It can often get a lot worse. The Trailcat trying to cut back on the exit of turn 1, but is just not quite able to draw on. Doesn't quite have the acceleration, and then doesn't really have the grip through the corner. It troubled the Daytona a little bit, but in the end it's just ran out of grip. There were a few vehicles a little bit unlucky off the start. Some quite fast vehicles buried a bit down in the pack. This Odyssey and the Transit were both pretty damn quick, trying to make their way back up through the field. The Odyssey up against a Land Rover, a nice clean overtake down into the chicane. This was actually a front-wheel drive Odyssey as well. Most that ran Odysseys had swapped them, but this one was working in front-wheel drive. Yeah, you get the run down the long straights to the inside of the chicane. Probably your best spot for overtaking around. Certainly the easiest spot for overtaking around this circuit. There are plenty of places, we've seen them plenty go on already in this race alone, but as far as safe spots go, that was the place to do it. The Transit actually got fastest lap of the race here, but yeah, had a lot of work to do trying to work his way back through the whole field. Came up against, well, the Jag was fighting with the BMW. They both slowed each other down so much the Transit can sweep around the outside of one of them. Is now trying to look around the outside of the final turn on the BMW. Can't do it. The car ahead, the Chevrolet pickup truck, gets a huge slide. I felt for sure that Chevy was going to go into the wall. He managed to recover it. An excellent save to stop that one letting go. The BMW didn't quite have the speed on the exit of the final corner. The Transit would cut back and get that position. The Jag would actually pass the BMW as well. Now the Transit having a look for a way past the big Colorado, but couldn't quite do it at that particular moment in time. Wouldn't be long, though, before it did. The Volvos were not faring too badly. It can be a little bit difficult in these cars to really work that well for some of the class racing. They weren't the fastest cars out here, but they weren't doing too bad. They were clinging on to two positions. In fact, this one looking for a way past a Daytona as they head down the straight. This one a little bit faster, perhaps in a straight line, not quite as good through the corners as the red and white one. It's into the braking zone they go. The Daytona gets stuck on the outside with nowhere to go, runs out of grip, and in having fought so hard for that position, actually ends up losing another one to the very rapidly catching Transit. For the very front of the field, I would be gifted 2 positions to make my way up into second. I was catching the leaders, but both an Odyssey and a Volvo would make mistakes that would give me places up into second, and I would end up in a bit of a stalemate with the Charger at the front. Both of us setting very, very similar lap times for a lot of it, and not much that I could do about chasing down the Dodge in the closing stages of the race. So the Charger would take a victory, my Firebird in second, where the Honda Odyssey, in all of its rear-wheel drive lariness, would end up in third. So to the podium, Irag Viscor taking that victory, me in second, and Static Sheep doing well to get an Odyssey on to the podium. Race number 2, and I would be back to my famed Forza starting position of at the back of the field for a race around the Brands Hatch GP circuit. Another car starting down the order with me that would be very keen to try and make its way up through the pack as quickly as possible was this Camaro that the camera is following. Of course, the first few corners of Brands Hatch do tend to be on the rather busy side. There is a lot of 2 and 3 wide going on. I was involved in it. The Camaro was involved in it. Again, if you're going to try and get through, where you have relatively short races, if you're going to get from the back of the field to anywhere near the front, you want to be able to get a good start, get some overtakes done on this opening lap, and the Camaro was managing to pick off cars very nicely so far as he cleared another one, a Crown Vic, on his run through kind of towards the halfway stage of this first lap. Next on the order, a Firebird, a very, very slow Firebird down the straight in comparison to the Camaro, in comparison to some of the cars around it. However, it was very quick through the corners, sticks it out around the outside. In the end, that lack of acceleration is going to be difficult for the Firebirds to deal with. Again, out around the outside of 2 corners through all of that. However, cannot keep hold of it around the outside forever, inevitably having to duck back into line. The Camaro now is sort of stuck in a bit of a traffic jam. You can't go anywhere. We've got a giant Ford Raptor, there's an Audi sort of all blocking the road. I was at the back of this group. I too finding myself will draw alongside the blue and red Firebird, and kind of a fairly straightforward acceleration zone for me to blast past the car. I was busy fighting with a Jag as the Camaro would continue to kind of pick its way through, fighting with the Transit, with the Raptor. I'm having to go the long way round on a Jag down towards turn 1. Not really fancying trying to go around the outside. I'm happy to cut back, shove the nose up the inside on the exit towards turn 2. A little bit of a better overtaking spot than at turn 1. Almost managed to draw alongside the Audi, but the Audi shuts the door. I couldn't quite get my nose far enough alongside in the end. That gives me a bit of grief in that it makes me a little slower out of turn 2. Thankfully for me, the Jag was in trouble on the exit. He ran a bit wide. I'm now around the outside of an Audi, trying desperately not to get boxed in behind a Transit. Thankfully, the Transit, quick accelerating, not quite as quick as me, but the Transit would kind of get going and pull far enough away from the Audi so that I could dive to the inside, and that was about 3 positions in almost as many corners. My Firebird was working well. I was very pleased. As the car ahead put a wheel on the grass at an acceleration zone, got a big switch across the track. Thankfully, nobody collecting that. Further back, the field would actually continue to be pretty damn busy. I have to say, with this kind of rule set that we had going on with these heavier cars, okay, they're not the easiest things in the world perhaps to build, or the easiest things in the world to drive, because they are, fairly heavy, but we did get a really good variety of interesting and very different cars battling all throughout the field. This, yeah, Aston Martin tries to go around the outside of a Jag, can't quite make it stick there, wants to try and cut back on the exit again, struggling to find a move that will stick. The Jag a little bit slow into this penultimate corner. The Aston is going to brave that one around the outside. The V8 Advantage eventually getting the move done, however, couldn't hold it. As soon as I run towards the next corner, the Jag with that bit more straight line speed was able to get the pass done, although a big slide on the exit gives the Aston a little bit of a hope as he tries to get back alongside. The Jag can just about fend that one off though for now. There's a lot going on in these races throughout the pack. The Audi, that was stuck again in another big group of cars. The blue and red Firebird with many grips and no speed kind of leading this little section. HSV was trying to find a way to move up a position, but struggling to make any of that stick and having to start defending from the Audi. So the horrible attack or defend stage, and with a little bit running wide, again, it's another instance of just the tiniest of mistakes is all it's going to take. You just have to ask that fraction too much of the car. And when you've got a group of vehicles lining up behind you, that is all it takes. Only loses one position in this instance, but yeah, little mistakes could prove very costly. I, having started at the very back of the field, was up to third and, well, wanting a second place. I was hoping to chase down the leader, but we were quickly running out of laps, and I got stuck a little bit behind an Odyssey for a while. The Odyssey was determined to make it as difficult as possible and certainly give my Firebird some grief down the straights. It wasn't going to be an easy pass, so I had to get creative. It's not an easy place to go around the outside. I really wanted to make it stick. In the end, it was my turn to ask too much of the car. I could keep my foot down. Get a surprising amount of sort of grip and traction I could get out of the Firebird, even with probably 3 wheels on the dirt through all of that. Still couldn't make it stick into the next corner, but I cut back on the exit, and that would put the Pontiac up a position. Slightly disappointed I couldn't get the real spectacular around the outside pass to work. Either way, I did make a pass. I did get through on the Odyssey. We had another Transit that was holding on to these. It was around 6th, 7th place mark. The Transit with the straight line speed. This one coming up against another Firebird. The Firebirds were quite popular in this, but I think this was the only race where there was a large number of Firebirds, but they were particularly popular in this one. The Transit might have had the straight line speed. In the end, the superior grip of that Firebird was giving him a fair amount of trouble, although it wasn't going to be a straightforward pass for the Pontiac. It got to the inside of the exit of turn 2. It was a good move. However, that Ford's acceleration and the preferred line down in towards 3 was enough to fight back, and the Firebird would be left a little bit frustrated. I often have to say the massive Raptor was not doing too badly for pace at all, managing to cling on inside the top 10, because that's a massive truck, certainly compared to things like the Camaro that would go on to take a victory. Once again, I'd get myself to second. I made a couple of little mistakes in the very final lap and dropped me a little further back from the Camaro. Again, it would have been really interesting to see how I would have matched up in a straight fight against the Camaro, because both of our cars were very quick, with both of us having come from, I think, probably the last 3 or 4 rows on the grid. Yeah, that Camaro and my Firebird were mighty fast in all of that. The podium, EVR Liam T would take the victory. I would have to settle for second again with Where's My L Plate in third. Another podium and another Odyssey with a third place. Round number 3, and we would head to Sonoma. The Sonoma short layout. This is it's a tough circuit. There's a lot of corners for these large and heavy vehicles to have to deal with. Off the start, it was somewhat crowded. A Charger ending up being forced across the grass. Unfortunately, Spinner further back. Otherwise, most vehicles making it through relatively well. It does. You certainly get stacked up quite a lot through some of these faster corners on the opening laps. Everyone's kind of slowing and avoiding what might be going on up ahead. But again, the majority of vehicles managing to make it through. A few using the runoff area at that particular corner. The Charger having a look up the inside while Volvo would go and make it 3 wide. Actually, a really good move from the Volvo. Spotted the gap, went through the middle of everything. The BMW in a lot of trouble out wide, tries to get back online without losing too many positions, but it's lost 3 of them as a limo. Yeah, there was a limo in this one. That was up a position. The Charge is now busy fighting back against that Volvo towards one of the quickest and one of the toughest turns on the circuit. The Charger is having a look, is having a sniff up the inside as something falls off. That run-off area would claim many a vehicle, or many a vehicle would, escape their way across that particular part, and it is the Charger gets to the inside of the Volvo to get the place done, while I think a Crown Vic got in trouble, stuck on the outside through all of that, but they would make their way through. The Charger now chasing down a BMW towards these first and second quarter here is a tough one. There's a few different lines that people will take through here. You can end up being kind of fast in different places, which can often make for some scary moments. The BMW in the end out too wide through through turn 3. The Charger, with the Ryan, would sweep around the outside on the way up the hill and get that pass completed. I had a fairly kind grid spot, got through the opening lap, was in 4th, once again looking for a way onto the podium coming up against a Volvo. I knew I was never really likely to make that move work around the outside. I knew where my Firebird was strong. The Volvo was a little better than me through the corners. I was significantly faster accelerating than the big estate car, while the leaders were busy going side by side on their way up through the hill. It was, I knew I could get alongside in one of these acceleration zones. I might have a chance, but this time it is to the outside of the Volvo. Not too fussed about trying to make that work. It's more about get the cutback on the exit, get that acceleration on the exit, and that is where I stood the most chance. And sure enough, Firebird up the inside. Got to make sure I didn't overrun the corner, because the Volvo is always likely to want to try a cutback through that. However, even though the Volvo does get alongside and did have a better kind of initial run, its lack of acceleration, its lack of straight line speed meant I would be able to beat it in towards the S's, even with it's like my Firebird was a little on the oversteery side, but it was, yeah, it was manageable. It was manageable. Further back, this will actually become a race-long battle between the Volvo and the Jeep. Again, the big Volvo involved with a 3-wide moment through that particular car. I mean, that is one of the better overtaking opportunities, but we don't normally see 3-wide. We certainly don't normally see 3-wide in a giant Volvo, a Jeep Wrangler, and a Land Rover Defender. That's not a normal sort of selection of vehicles that end up going 3-wide as the Volvo's turn to playing it risky with the curb. Still under a huge amount of pressure from that Jeep, but the Wrangler just not able to find a way to get past it. You kind of draw alongside. The Charger was unbelievably close to the wall through there, getting away with that. Again, the Volvo is just far enough ahead, covers the inside, defends through all of that, while the Land Rover would come into trouble with the limo and quick transit. Yeah, the Jeep was looking every which way, but just could not find a way past that Volvo. I was up in 2nd, and this time the leader had not been able to run away. I was right there looking for a way past. Again, I came up against a car a little better than me through the turns, but I knew I could out-drag it when we got to an acceleration zone. So my plan was to essentially irritate the Jaguar for the first bit of the lap. Make the Jaguar have to drive defensive. Make the Jaguar take compromised lines. Slow him down in the bits where he is quick. And then when we get to the bits where I'm fast, I am as close as I can be. Again, to sort of get the nose alongside and try and get that run, much as I've done to the Volvo. Get that run down towards this next corner. Not so much worry about complete the pass immediately. It's get alongside and then focus on this acceleration zone on the exit. The Jag, again, fought very hard, trying to hold on to that position around the outside. Couldn't make it stick, although it did mean that we were immediately then heading into the S's, where the Jaguar was pretty damn fast. All of that fighting actually brought the HSV and Volvo, just like half a lap of fighting had brought the HSV and Volvo right up to us. This was I was always a little bit scared of this corner in the Firebird. If the Jag nailed it, was quick through there, and he sure enough does this time around. I go defensive. The Jag very, very committed. I realised just how committed he's going to be. Open the steering a little bit, take a more normal line, go for the cutback on the exit, use the acceleration of the Firebird as all manner of mayhem was going on behind as well, and that would be enough. In the end, just that acceleration I could get out of the Firebird was very, very helpful indeed. The fact that it was as quick as it was in a straight line and still very good through the corners made it a very, very dangerous overall car. It was, yeah, competitive just about everywhere. This was the mayhem that was going on further back. The Charger Daytona was basically the cork in the bottle of this whole group of cars that they had closed up together, and one little mistake had put the Daytona in a bit of trouble. Let the first car through, and then everything was keen. As soon as the poor Dodge had ended up out of position once, just constantly had trouble. The Transit getting the move done into the hairpin. Now a limo. Yep, a limo going around the outside down towards the first corner. Volvo thought about making it 3 wide, very quickly realised there is not going to be a space for a big SUV. It's a fantastic pass by the limo, making it around the outside of kind of turn 1, turn 2s to the inside for turn 3. The Daytona gets stuck, hung out wide. The Volvo says thank you very much. We'll get that pass done, and still the Dodge in trouble would have the Jeep Wrangler through as well. Poor Daytona lost a heap of places in a lap just from a little mistake that puts it out of position. And again, once you've got a train of cars like that, one little mistake, everybody's going to jump on it. Just keeps the Dodge out of the optimum line, and everything wants to pile past. And still, the Wrangler hadn't found a way past the Volvo in one of the more unusual battles that we have seen. A Pontiac G8 was trying to fend off a Transit and a limo. When it comes to these versus communities, we've had a lot of unusual battles of late, but yeah, it's just it was great to see such a really interesting variety of cars doing battle here and racing very close together. The limo actually got a really tight line up the hairpin, had absolutely no speed in all of this. The Transit wasn't being out-dragged by the Pontiac, but the G8 having nowhere to really go. And the Transit surprisingly good, actually, through the corners. The Transit can carry some real speed through these turns and would eventually get that move completed and clear of the Pontiac. Would go chasing down that Dodge Charger, but ran out a little bit of laps. I mean, this was 5th back, essentially, that were fighting here, and they fought so viciously for a lot of the mid-race. Us top 4 were able to escape away a little bit. Although it would be a far from simple time for us at the front. With me having got to the lead, the Jag was able to keep making me sort of have to defend, take little compromise lines. I couldn't really pull a massive gap, but in our fighting, that had allowed the HSV to catch back up to the tail end of the group. Now, my hope was that the HSV would be able to keep the Jag busy. That the Jag having to try and attack and defend all at the same time, I was kind of hoping it would slow him down and give me that little bit of a breather. And it did kind of work. If I could focus on the bits of the track where my Firebird was quick, the Jag was pushing really damn hard to try and catch up. I did end up a little bit on the grass, the Jag following me through there, and now it was the Jag's turn to be in trouble, trying desperately to fend off the HSV. Is deep in the braking zone, although sometimes when you do end up a little bit wider in the braking zone, you can get a good launch off of the corner, even with the Jags perhaps struggle a little bit more for straight line speed in comparison to my Firebird. He was able to keep ahead there for now. The HSV has a good chance on the inside into turn 1, but doesn't have the grip to stick with the Jag, and would would stay in that 3rd position. Again, you can see the Volvo was nowhere at the start of the lap, but as those two fought for that position, the Volvo was right there in case anything happened. For me, the final couple of laps with the Jag and HSV being busy with one another, I was able to have a little bit more comfortable time. I didn't have to worry about sort of constantly defending. The Jag had thrown everything, the Volvo threw everything at the final lap, but couldn't quite make a move stick, while the Transit was busy battling with the Charger. It would finally be a victory for the Firebird, given the opportunity. I was able to take the win. The Jag would fend off the HSV for second. The Volvo would end up in a 4th place. The final lap, further back, was rather manic, to say the least, as the limo was continuing to try and find ways to go around the outside of cars. I know it's a strange thing to say, but the limo was going... I mean, normally the limos are very difficult to pass. The limos are very difficult to pass just because of their sheer length. Trying to get an overlap and get the pass done on a limo is tough. But the limo was, again, another car that was showing some pretty decent pace, and that's around the outside of 3 corners against the Pontiac, but it just couldn't quite get it done. That's a really long sequence of corners to be stuck on the outside. The limo doing a fantastic job. Then there's a Volvo right tucked in with this group as well, trying to look for a way past, but the Volvo's got to try and get past that huge, great big boat of a car, and he can't do it towards this fast corner. The limo might have an opportunity on the way into the final turn if he can get the braking right, get the vehicle stopped, get to the inside of the Pontiac. There's some sliding from that limo. The Transit would have got the pass done, I think, on the Charger up ahead. They're running side by side towards the line. The limo couldn't get the move done on the Pontiac and very nearly ended up losing out to the Volvo. Podium, I would take the victory. Tim Ninetales in second with that Jag, with Eccentric Racer in third, driving the HSV. I had a really good fun evening with these cars. There was a lot of very, very good racing and an interesting variety of vehicles, actually performing very, very well. My Firebird was an excellent car. It was an excellent all-round vehicle. It was good accelerating, good top speed. Not the very best handling car there, but certainly dealt with the corners no problem. It was a formidable car at any of the circuits it went to. I think it's one of the better built. Certainly, for this sort of thing, I think I'm very pleased with the build on that. Whether it work in kind of general C-Class stuff, I don't know. It's probably a bit too heavy to be competitive. However, when you are racing heavyweights, that Firebird, I'm very happy with it indeed. That though is going to be it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one is going to be held on the 31st of May. We're going to go racing with B-Class all-wheel drive cars. If you want to sign up and take part in that, you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description of this video. Find the FailRace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. However, that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.